We're here, we're queer, and we will continue to change the world. Welcome to Queer Changemakers. I'm your host, Justin Mezzapin, pronouns he, him, and each episode will share stories of LGBTQ plus individuals who are taking action to make a difference in our communities and beyond. Thanks for joining and celebrating episode 20. So I hit another milestone in terms of episodes, and I'm 20% done until I can stop. Committed to at least 100 episodes, and I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but I hope you continue to be a part of this vision. Speaking of which, that is the topic of today's episode, queer vision. Every episode, I ask guests about their vision for the LGBTQ plus community. And I do it because I truly believe that vision is foundational. It sets the base and direction that we're intending to move forward. There's a quote by Simon Sinek that says, "A vision is not just a picture of what could be. It is an appeal to our better selves, a call to become something more." And when I think about this podcast and the ideas behind it, the number one goal is to share the visions of different LGBTQ plus people who are taking action for a few reasons. One, if they share their vision, other people can sign up and join. So if someone has a business with a vision or a goal and it aligns with a listener, that listener can then connect with them to help them achieve their goal and or achieve the goal for themselves. Two, it allows for more co-creation and collaboration. If someone shares their vision and you also have that vision, you can reach out to them and say, "Hey, you're doing this part, I'm doing this part. What if we work together and we can go further, faster, and have more fun in the process?" Three, sometimes when someone shares their vision, even if I don't fully understand it or it doesn't fully align with me, it does inspire me to think more about what my visions are and what I would like to see in the world. So last April, I ran a challenge called Launch with Pride, and the goal was to help. So last year, I ran a challenge, and it was called Launch with Pride. And the goal was to share what I've been learning and things I've experienced to help LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs authentically grow their businesses with pride. So each day I had a topic and it was pride in your blank. So day one was pride in your purpose. Day two was pride in your product. Day three was pride in your people. Day four was pride in your presentation. And day five was pride in your plan. And I enjoy it because it took a while to come up with a P for each of those days, but it was fun and I'm glad I did that. The goal of the whole challenge in the event was how can I help people choose a direction, set a vision they want to go to, and then in the upcoming Pride season, we'd be able to launch it. So whether it was a product or a coaching program or some other experience, it would be, hey, let's go through this challenge and bring what you're working on, and we'll build it up to a place where it'll be ready to release coming up. That was last year, and I may run it again depending on if people are interested and my time and schedule. Anyway, but the first day we discussed purpose and vision, because without it, what's the point? Growing up, I always heard without a vision, the people perish. And right now, I want our community to thrive. When I attended Creating Change, I decided to ask this to a number of people. So I'd say, what is your vision you have for the next step of our LGBTQ community? Or sometimes I asked in a different way, saying, if you had a mini magic wand, so it can make a change if you asked, but nothing too big, such as like solving climate change or political divisiveness, what would you ask for? So at some of the sessions, in some of the breakouts, and around some of the meals, I asked this question, and I have a number of answers that I will share now. The first set of visions had to do with advocacy, politics, and getting more involved. Someone said, "I want Michelle Obama to run for president and sacrifice herself so that someone could actually bring us all together. For DC to finally become a state so that it could affect the balance of power in Congress. More elected queer leaders so that they can bring queer values and a queer perspective to leadership and government. Someone from Ontario said for Native peoples and Indigenous peoples to get their land back, have true sovereignty, and more. And then a couple people said something like having more people involved locally, promoting small area change making, and having more ways for friends to get involved and contribute in small, concrete actions. So I appreciated this set of visions because it's sort of how can we, looking at our political realities, what are some of the ways power at the top can be used to improve not just our community, but more. The next set of visions had to do with our community overall. So first, when I asked the question, someone said trans joy. Another response was instead of isolation and depression, more joy and resilience. More queer people building art, sharing culture, and making an impact in our world in fun, creative ways. Another person said, having really accessible and spiritual spaces that show gods and goddesses and deepen our queer magic. More queer temples. Another person said, more people to know about queer culture and slang, or maybe something like Duolingo, but for LGBTQ ideas. And the last one in community was more shared goals, less segmentation, and more community for all of the LGBTQ plus spectrum. I enjoyed all of these because they had more joy, more creativity, more fun, and just bringing people together. And, we don't always have to think of the hard things, but sometimes we could think of those fun things to make our society better. Jumping in the episode here to break it up a little bit and to ask you, what is your vision? I would actually really love to hear it. And if you look in the show notes, there will be a link to a Google form where you can share your vision, a vision that you have for the LGBTQ plus community. So if you go to bit.ly/QCM_share your vision, you can share your vision with me and it may be a part of a future episode and it can be done anonymously or not. And I would really love to hear you. So thanks in advance for that and enjoy the rest of this episode. Okay, this next set had to do with very specific things that are either queer or for everyone. So when I asked people this question, one person said, how's everyone? So it's no more homelessness. Another response was free access to healthcare, including gender affirming care and fertility care. Another person said equity in education, so everyone can learn safely in a stable environment, have stimulated ideas and lessons, and customized for different learning styles. Other specific changes people said as visions was to change the tax code for foundations because many of them can just serve as tax havens. Another idea was more innovative programming for bi-plus people and communities. Another was for funders and foundations to truly understand healing justice. Next, better ways to sustain relationships and succession planning in nonprofits. Also, for faith leaders, also for queer faith leaders to be included more in the process within secular organizations instead of being seen as an afterthought. More cultural competency in nursing homes and places for our elders so that LGBTQ plus queer people can have a space there. And especially having training for staff and residents who may not be affirming or welcoming in those spaces. I appreciate this set of specific visions because each one talks about a specific industry, right? Healthcare, housing, education, taxes, foundations, nonprofits. It's all very tangible. And when I think about some of these visions becoming reality, it's a lot easier just to see who might be able to be helping in those spaces and how, if any of these visions align, how to connect and, take action to do the next step or how to contribute to those other organizations. The next two are a little more specific. So I asked the question, and someone said, I want people to know the difference between a social media influencer and a leader. Another person said, I want older generations to validate online experiences as real and important. Those two really stick out because in this post-pandemic world with more social media, more online experiences, um, how can people understand the value of those online experiences? And especially with that first vision, what does leadership really look like? How can we use these new experiences, these new ways of engaging with the world for betterment of our community for everyone? This last set of visions has to do more with our specific community, but also, I think, community overall and what we're looking for. So, one was promoting a positive image of LGBTQ plus life in our later years. Two, BIPOC QT leaders accessing more feeling in their lives, living the fullness and best versions of ourselves. Three, everyone has a good quality of life, not just surviving, but thriving in education, healthcare, safety, and joy. And the last vision that I got from people was having more tight-knit communities, caring about and fighting for us instead of me. So they think about all these visions that people have shared with me, and this is just 30 of over 2,000 people who I could have asked this question to. I look at the diversity of ideas. I look at how wide they span. They're not all focused in one area, but in all of these different areas of life. And when I look at them as individuals, I see many organizations that are already working in so many of these to make them a reality. I think of leaders and others who are already in the fight, who are doing the research, doing the education, already on the ground to make these changes happen in our world and in our communities. And it inspires me to keep finding more of those people to share their stories, figuring out how can I help people connect to what's already happening so that we can take our individual efforts and give it to the collective so that we are really building more communities and creating that change for all of us. Last week, a friend had a karaoke birthday here in DC near my house. And when I went, there was a song that someone chose. It was Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield. And this karaoke establishment had their version of the lyrics, and the lyrics weren't quite correct. But it was funny because it wasn't correct, but it made sense. So I'm going to say some of those lyrics and I'm going to include the change because I think it was awesome and it really speaks to this. So staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inner visions. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. And I love how it said release your inner visions because it's definitely not the words. The words should be inhibitions, but I still love it. Like release your inner visions and feel the rain on your skin. So, with that, as I end this episode, I want to hear your vision. I want you to share how you would answer that question, right? If what is the vision you have for the next step of our LGBTQ plus community and more? In the show notes for this episode, there is a link to a Google form where you can go and say what your vision is. I would love to hear it. And maybe this will be used in a future episode to see what are the other visions that people have that we'd like to see in our community. What are the visions that we are creating in our community? Where do we want our community to go? Because at the end of the day, our community gets to decide that. We get to choose how we show up, when we show up, and what we intend to make happen. So I look forward to seeing you release your inner visions. And I'll leave you with this one last quote from Simon Sinek. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Thank you for listening to this episode of Queer Changemakers. This is Justin, and I hope you are able to get some inspiration and maybe some ideas about how you can take action to create positive change in your life, communities, and beyond. See you next time.